Let's go up to the long distance, the marathon and above. What are y'all thinking about for shoes that came out this year? What's your pick and why? Matt, let's start with you for this one.
My poor Adios Pro 3s, I ran into the ground, so I just recycled them today at a local running store. But so if I had to go run a marathon tomorrow, it would be in the Adios Pro 3. And so the update was a little controversial to me because I really enjoyed the Adios Pro 2. It was definitely a shoe that I used from everything from 5K, I used it up to a half marathon distance. I haven't done any marathons recently, but I've done a lot of longer efforts. And while I liked the Adios Pro 2, the more I used it, the more I was like, this is a great like shorter distance, but I don't think I could handle it because of its lateral bias going up to a marathon. Whereas the changes they made with the Adios Pro 3 really fixed that, but still kept it as a what I would call like kind of inherently stable racing shoe. Where it's the Light Strike Pro isn't the softest. The rods make it really stiff, but now the sole is flared out on both sides, so it just got this nice inherently stable ride to it for a racing shoe. It is lighter. It didn't feel lighter. It actually felt a little bit more substantial because it feels like the mass is heavier or like bigger, but they use some geometry to drop the weight. So 7.6 ounces for men's size 9, 39.5, 33 millimeters in the heel, and 4 foot for a 6.5 millimeter drop. So a tiny bit more stack height from what I remember. It's just one of the shoes, once it broke in, yeah, the rods make it stiff, but I could handle doing long runs in that shoe without a problem. And it's one of those things like I could pick the pace up. It was perfect for longer threshold efforts, marathon pace runs, a little bit in the tempos. I can't run fast in it. I can't do intervals. I can't do faster tempos in it just for whatever reason, but I can go all day in that shoe. So for me, if I was going to do a marathon tomorrow and I wasn't totally prepped, the Adios Pro 3 would be my long distance racing shoe of choice for this year.
So I got a question for you. I mean, you obviously loved the Endorphin Pro 3. Would that be in consideration too?
Yes.
Like, did you just pick the Adios Pro 3 because it was you just wanted to differentiate them, or would the other one ever would you ever just usurp it and say, actually, I would just use Endorphin Pro 3?
Yeah, no, that's actually true. So I'm not just choosing the Endorphin Pro. To be honest, if I was trained for the marathon, Endorphin Pro 3, hands down. It is like pretty much my racing shoe of the year. Which I'm probably not supposed to say right now, but that's okay. But the Adios Pro 3, I think if I wasn't ready and I wanted something that I could trust over that super long distance, because the Endorphin Pro 3, it's an aggressive soft shoe. It's bouncy. You gotta be able to control it. I'm not sure at the moment I would have the mechanics to control that up to a marathon. Definitely a half. I would have to see up to a full. But for the Adios Pro 3, I just have a little bit more trust because I was able to use it for a little bit more long run stuff and come away really comfortable.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. I was just curious. So if you were in shape and actually trained, you'd probably go with the Endorphin Pro 3 because it's phenomenal. I wouldn't
even second guess that. It'd be the Endorphin Pro 3 if I was trained. But the Adios Pro 3 is kind of like my safe shoe that I think a lot of people are going to do well in if they're like, I don't want the most aggressive shoe, even though it's being worn on the feet of some of the fastest people for marathon right now. Right. It's not, in my mind, as aggressive. It's not as versatile into the faster stuff, but also I think because of that is a little bit more trustworthy over longer stuff.
Cool. Well, David, what about you? What do you got for this one?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of an interesting pick this year because, I mean, with all these new generation shoes that are coming out, I feel like the weight just kind of keeps coming up. And I think that 7-ounce mark is kind of the sweet spot, but there's a shoe that's still just kind of deep in my heart, you know? And the Alphafly, man, they basically what they did in the Alphafly 2 for this year. And my reasons for that specifically, they did make a couple of changes to this shoe that I think do make it favorable to these long distances. Now, the shoe was already a little on the heavier side. It was like 8.0 ounces, I think, last time. I think it's 8.4 now. So, I mean, like, it's getting up there, you know, where it's kind of like, this is starting to get a little heavy. And so even for the half marathon, I was still a little bit like, I kind of wished it would be a little bit lighter over the last 5K when I start fatiguing a little bit. And it's like, oh, I just need a little bit of help to just lift my heel, you know, and keep turning over hard. But for the marathon, when you don't need to go quite as fast and you're just going rhythmic and you just want a shoe you can trust, they basically, what they did was they focused on stability. So they widened it out a little bit. They basically added a little bit. They made the drop more forgiving because it was a 4 millimeter drop before. Now it's an 8 millimeter drop. 40-32 for the stack heights there, 40 in the heel, 32 in the forefoot. They made the upper a little bit more secure. They increased the sidewalls through the medial part here and through the lateral part, so you get a little bit more of that kind of guidance feel. That encroachment that I used to get in the first version, I don't have that at all in the second version. Everything was kind of cleaned up. Those transitions are smoother, but the shoe's heavier, and it doesn't feel as fast. So it's one of those shoes where it's like, I'm going to settle into rhythm. I'm just going to stay there, and I'm going to ride this out as long as I can type of shoe versus I'm going to go run fast. You know what I mean? Like, granted, Eliud Kipchoge just ran a world record. Like, what am I going to say? Like, the guy just ran 4:37 pace, like, for 26.2 miles. I can't run 4:37 pace in this shoe very comfortably. I can do it. It doesn't feel that great. Like, I'd rather go run like 5:10 to 5:25. For me, that would be like a controlled long distance type effort. And I did do a half marathon in this, and I averaged, I think, like 5:16, 5:17. So that's kind of like right where that falls in line for me. I would say, like, I have two other shoes that I'm going to add on just real quick. Other honorable mention, Metaspeed Edge Plus. Again, shoe that works well, cushioned enough. It's got enough protection underfoot, rolls well, rhythmic with my stride. I can trust it. I've taken this shoe past 20 miles multiple times. It was a very close nod almost for what I was going to run CIM in. I ended up changing my mind at the last second. Unfortunately, or not really the last second. I gave myself like a full month.
There's a month.
But for those that don't know, if you're watching this, I didn't run CIM. That's why I'm here recording this. Unfortunately, I got COVID a few days ago, so I had to pull out of the race. With that said, anyways, Metaspeed Edge Plus, very good shoe. One that we haven't talked about that I just want to give a shout out. Like, it's just a fun shoe. The X-Tep 160 3.0.
Oh, yeah.
My goodness. Like, the toe off on that shoe is so fun. It's one of the closest shoes that I've felt to an Alphafly. And I mean that genuinely. Like, I'm being very honest here. The shoe's fun to run in. And it's a little bit heavier. It's 8.6 ounces. It's like one of those ones where it's like, I don't think I'm actually going to race in this. But as a training companion for me, like, it's actually worked pretty well. And I've done several solid workouts in this shoe. Just a very, very fun shoe to run in. But what I was going to run CIM in actually wasn't released this year. So it was released last year. It was a shoe we talked a lot about last year. And it was the Puma Deviate Nitro Elite. And so, again, I talked about a shoe you can trust, something that you've taken the distance multiple times. I've taken it beyond 20 miles many times. And I almost picked it last year, and I didn't end up going with it. And I think it was the shoe that I should have run in last year, just based on the trust, mechanics, type of course, terrain, things like that. And I decided to run in it this year. Unfortunately, it didn't actually get to run it. So that's that. But yeah, those are my long distance choices there. So Alphafly 2.
No, that's great.
A6 Metaspeed Edge Plus. I think the Endorphin Pro 3 would get a nod. I think it's the same thing that I was feeling before. I just got to train up to it a little bit. It's just the higher stack, a little bit softer power and PB in this one compared to the old one. I feel like I just needed to adjust my stride and just literally train up to the shoe. But it's still an awesome shoe that I could easily see someone ripping a marathon in.
Right. Cool. Well, again, my picks, again, are a little bit hypothetical, but it's based off of my previous experiences, what I've liked in my marathon shoes in the past. My most recent marathon I ran in the Endorphin Pro 2, which I loved. I have no complaints. I would do that again. I find that shoe to be very rhythmic and not super aggressive. And because I'm running, I ran a 3:30, just under 3:30 for my last marathon. So I'm not pushing hard. I'm just trying to get in rhythm and feel protected and having something that just works really well with my mechanics. In that vein, for shoes that came out this year, there's two of them that I would pick. Neither of them are super shoes as defined by price point or with carbon fiber plate with a P-Bax midsole and the rocker geometry, but also neither. Well, one of them I guess is I should scrap everything I said. One of them is super expensive, but it doesn't have a plate in it. So the two shoes, and I'm going to say them both kind of together. The first one is the Super Blast. Again, we've picked that shoe a lot, which is kind of annoying me that we've picked it so much. I don't know why it's irking me, but I just really, for a shoe that I want to run a marathon, I want rhythm, and that has a pretty stable platform with the sidewalls and the base and the rocker. It's just the right amount for me, and I feel like I would like it at 22 miles just as much as I like it at mile 1. The other one that I've mentioned already today is the Endorphin Speed 3. I think that the wider plate and the less aggressive, the wider plate and then the fact that it has some flexibility and a nice rocker to it, I think that those two shoes, and I would probably even nod a little bit towards the Endorphin Speed 3 a little bit, just after what my run was like yesterday. Recency bias, I fully say that is true just because I had a great run in it yesterday. I think I would trust those two shoes more than something like the Endorphin Pro 3 that would just requires a little bit more of you to be a little bit more ready. I could see that potentially being something for shorter distance, but it's funny, the two shoes y'all mentioned make me, I didn't run in either of those this year. I didn't have either of those sent over my way. So like the Endorphin or the Adios Pro 3, Matt, you talking about kind of what boxes it checks for you, that sounds similar to the kind of the way that I approach that shoe type and that selection. So I'd be curious to try that one at some point. And same with the changes that they made to the Alphafly too.